Good morning. I started coming to this temple consistently a couple of years ago during a difficult transition time. At first, it was weird. I felt awkward with the new concepts and practices, but within a couple of months, I knew that I'd found my spiritual home. In the beginning, everything was daisies and balloons. I told a friend it was like being in love. Everything is new and beautiful. You wake up smiling, and you're so curious about what the next day will bring. How will my practice unfold today? I have so many choices, and they're all totally cool. There are so many new things to learn, and so many choices. It's exciting. Every day is exciting, and you feel like you're taking giant steps to a whole new life. But inevitably, just like when you're in love, that lofty, joyful feeling that just started to fade a little bit. Then a bit more and a bit more. And I began to feel desperate. I wanted to get it back. I thought, what if the honeymoon's over? Now what do I do? So thinking that others have surely felt this way, and knowing that I'm still struggling with this, I'd like to talk to you today about recognizing and acknowledging this feeling of non-progression and what you might be able to do to combat it. I'll give you some mental tips and some more practical do-it-yourself tips. So what do I mean by plateau? For me, it means I'm just not feeling it. My motivation to practice is low. My energy is low. I worry that without motivation, I might regress to where I was before I started practicing, a place where my mind would perseverate on negative thoughts, a place where my mind was not my own, and I was not living a full life. I worry that I might go back to this narrow, small way of living. So let me ask all of you, what does a plateau look like? Draw it in the air with your finger. Okay, some people might draw it like this, up, flat, back down. That's a mesa. That's a mountain with the top cut off. Once you climb up to the top of the mesa, there's no place to go but down. A plateau, the kind I'm talking about, is like this. There's a steep slope, a flat spot, and then you start going up again. Now I want you to think about something. Think about a time when you did not feel like meditating or coming to service. What is that experience like for you? Do you have ways of coping with it? Once you are back to practicing a bit better, do you expect it to come again, or do you always hope that it won't? I'm going to let you in on a secret, which most of you probably know anyway. That feeling of low motivation, it's going to come back. Ah! But let's not lose hope. There is no expectation that walking along the path of Won Buddhism will be all smooth. In fact, the Dharma book has all kinds of encouragement for times like these. Here's one. Don't be anxious or frustrated if your own knowledge and conduct are still not in correspondence with one another. Just because you keep hearing the same teaching over and over again, do not regard it as easy. And just because you have still not been able to put it into practice, do not become discouraged. Okay, so what can we do when we feel like we've lost that motivation, when we're not progressing on the path? I'm going to list a lot of tips because one thing that works for one person may not work for another, and something that works for you one day may not work the other day. Very important note before I start. Some of these tips are from my own experience, but many are from practitioners who generously and thoughtfully responded to my questions about plateaus. Okay, let's start with mind-focused tips. 1, do not allow failure as a reason to quit. Once when I was doing my best to meditate at home during a time when I was really distracted at work, I started with a mantra of in-breath, out-breath, to try to focus my mind. This was going okay, I thought, and I lasted 10 minutes. Hey, that's better than nothing. But as I started to stand up, I realized that my mantra had changed in those 10 minutes from in-breath, out-breath to in-box, out-box. That was a fail. Here's one of my favorite quotes from the Dalai Lama. Failure does not mean to quit. It means to persevere. So if you fall off of your practice, don't allow yourself to interpret that as, oh well, I might as well just forget this. Don't fall into an abyss. It's not an excuse for you to drop all the precepts just because you can't keep one or two of them. Keep the others that you can keep, and a way will open up for you. Number 2, don't quit, but give yourself a break. When one type of practice is not working, or seems too hard, or you have no motivation for it, try another one. This is a 3-fold practice. Cultivation, inquiry, mindful choice, and action. Right. So you can pick from each of these or any of these. So you can meditate or chant to cultivate your spirit, study the scriptures, come to a Dharma class, or mindful choice and action. Just don't be reactive to some conflict, or do some volunteer work. Switch it up a bit. So don't force yourself to do a particular thing. If a 20-minute meditation is not doing it, then try 5 minutes, or shift to another. Number 3, remember that you are strong. Know that, just like with every other person on this planet, you have both weaknesses and strengths. Sometimes it can help to allow yourself to recognize those strengths and give yourself a pat on the back, or allow others' compliments to reach you. Don't deflect the compliments of others. They may be just responding to what they see. Remember how hard you've worked to get where you are now, and know that there is some strength there already. 4, assess where you are. Tell a different story. Change the narrative. Rather than seeing this as a time when you're not progressing, maybe it's a time where things are percolating. Buddhism, especially for Westerners, has concepts that are new to us, and ways of thinking that are difficult for us to comprehend. This might be a time where things are happening underneath, a time when the mind is dealing with all of the stuff and working it out quietly. This is from The Way of Humanity. A person who wants all things in the world to be just as she wishes is as foolish as a person who builds a house in sand and presumes she will live in splendor for thousands of years. A wise person will be satisfied and grateful if 6 out of 10 times things work out in life the way she wished. So if your practice is not going as you wish it would, assess your situation and make note of the things that are going well. This leads to number 5. Keep the intention, ditch the expectation. Expecting something specific to come from your actions can lead to bad feelings when it doesn't turn out the way you expect. When you have a specific expectation in relationships with others, you might feel anger or resentment when it's not met. When you have a specific expectations for your own practice, you might feel discouraged when it does not happen. So let it go. Ditch the expectation, the attachment to how things turn out, and focus on your original intention. If you do not have an attachment to a specific outcome, you can be more open to seeing something else. In the case of practice, for example, maybe you really are making progress, just not where you expect to see it. The full statement here is, keep the intention, ditch the expectation, act, then be at peace. 2 more mind tips. Look ahead. Things change. We live in this world, so things arise and cease, come and go. This long, flat, discouraging stretch is still forward motion. You may be walking for a while on it, but look up. Things change and you will eventually be moving up again. Just keep moving. Be open to joy. Be open to any joyful moment during the day. Again, no matter how small. Sun shining through a spider web. Hey, not only is it pretty, but it allowed you to avoid putting your face through it when you walked out to get the newspaper. So those are the mind-focused tips. Don't allow failure as a reason to quit. Don't quit, but give yourself a break. Remember you are strong. Assess where you are. Keep the intention. Ditch the expectation. Look ahead and be open to joy. Okay, now for more practical people, let's start with the little things, which are really not so little, because they can work quite well. Use a checklist to encourage yourself to move forward. Know that these baby steps are okay. When you're stuck, just go to your checklist and check things off. That's easy. Don't judge or assess at that time. Just check them off if you've done them. If you don't have a checklist, start one. Start with maybe 2 or 3. Make them measurable, and remember that Won Buddhism is very practical. It's about living in this world, your everyday life. So start with the quotidian. For those of you who keep a checklist, okay, this is time for interaction here, or those who are thinking about starting one, what might be on your checklist that you would be willing to share?
Cook a meal. Cook a meal.
Cook a meal.
Pay bills.
Good.
Read.
Good. Anything else?
I have on my checklist that it shifts from time to time, but one thing that I have now is mindful eating, which just means to be kind of aware of what I'm doing in that moment, enjoying my food and not reading a magazine or checking my email simultaneously.
Right. Good. So checklists may seem juvenile, but they help you notice and mark the little victories. Sometimes it's hard to notice those. Celebrate even a tiny step forward. We tend to notice more when we fail and not give ourselves credit when we succeed. Stop by the temple. Walk around, meditate, do some work around the temple. There's always something to do around here. Make an appointment with one of the Kameny who love to talk to you about your practice. Number 3, requite some grace while you're at it. Basically, give back. Do any kind of volunteer work. Once when I was just tired of looking for work and I wasn't really feeling able to meditate, I just drove over to Carborough and bought some groceries at Harris Teeter and brought it over to Table, which is that group that helps school kids have lunches. So it just keeps you moving. Just get out and keep moving. Number 4, Sangha. I cannot underestimate, is that the right word? Do not underestimate the power of others, this community, to help you. Come to a group meeting or a service or another event just to be around people who are also practicing. Sometimes what other people say can inspire you and help you move along the path. They can give you a boost or a boot in the behind. 5, capitalize on times of progression. Also, once you are moving along, take full advantage of these times when your practice is strong. Use every bit of that you can. Capitalize on it. Challenge yourself when you have high energy and motivation, because this will make you stronger and you can call on the strength when you need it. So those practical tips are: use a checklist, stop by the temple, requite some grace, community, and capitalize on times of progression. So this was going to be the end of my talk, but in all good consciousness, I must add one thing just to mess with your minds. When I asked one of my Dharma buddies about his own experience with plateaus, he pretty much blew up this entire talk. He's been practicing for many years. Here's what he said: there is no plateau. The concept of a plateau is one of the many tricks the mind plays on us in order to get us to stop practicing. He says, I try to think of practice as a path with no destination. We just want to walk with as much intention and awareness as possible. The path is just the path. The plateaus and obstacles are delusion. We commit to the path because this is the life we want, deliberate and intentional. Confused? Me too. This is way beyond my capabilities at the moment. So I do what I always do when I come across something in Won Buddhism that I'm not quite ready for, but I suspect might serve me well at some point. I'm putting that thought up on a shelf where I can occasionally take it down and contemplate it. So back to my ending. For now, during times of low energy and motivation, whatever keeps you moving, just do it. The Dalai Lama said, "The mind can be stronger than steel. To train the mind, you must exercise the patience and determination it takes to shape that steel. Do not give up. If you are hopeful and determined, you will always find a measure of success." So, when you start to notice that something's a bit off with your practice, and your motivation is low, and you're full of excuses not to practice, do not be surprised or discouraged. Greet this familiar friend. "Oh yeah, you again," and get to work.
Thank you. Do you have all